So in this video, we're going to take a look at this new peace plan, why there's reason to suspect that Hamas won't accept it, and what might actually happen next. On Monday, US President Donald Trump, alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, presented yet another peace plan for Gaza. Despite the fact that the previous proposed ceasefires have all fallen short, Trump seemed remarkably optimistic about this one, claiming that it could even bring, quote, eternal peace to the Middle East. However, in the press conference afterwards, both Trump and Netanyahu made it clear that if Hamas didn't accept the deal, Israel would escalate its war in Gaza, with Netanyahu promising to, quote, finish the job, and Trump promising American support to that end.
I don't think that's right. I think Palestinians should have a say-so in how their government is ran. I think the Palestinians should be able to invest and build their own government. They should be able to build Gaza in their image.
If you're interested in the political alliances and groupings that shape our world, then you might enjoy our poster, Every Alliance Explained. It shows, in slightly confusing detail, all of the world's major alliances and how different countries link together. Check out the poster by clicking the links in the description. So let's get straight into it. We've actually got the full text of Trump's new peace plan for Gaza, and it's composed of 20 bullet points, which we'll run through quickly now, so stick with me. Point 1 states that Gaza will become a de-radicalized, terror-free zone. Point 2 states that Gaza will be redeveloped, quote, for the benefit of the people.
Which people? I need distinct clarity on that when you say that. I get the concept is to remove the permanent threat from Israel, that they are attempting to remove the spearhead from the Palestinian people to make it as to where they could never be a threat to Israel again. I'm not saying strategically it doesn't make sense. If you're in a military position of power, I would do the same thing. If I was a general, I would attempt the same maneuver. However, if you look at the history between Israel and between the Palestinians, Israel feels this is land that was promised to them. However, the Palestinians were in this land first. So there's some debate there. I don't want to turn this into a historical context of a video. Gaza will be redeveloped for the benefit of the people. I definitely need to know which people you're talking about.
Point 3 states that if both sides agree, the war will end immediately. Importantly, however, this doesn't mean that IDF troops will withdraw from Gaza. Rather, they'll just withdraw to a, quote, agreed upon line, only a kilometre or so back from their current line of control. Points 4 and 5 deal with hostages, obliging Hamas to return all hostages in return for thousands of Gazans detained since October 7th.
Okay, that's good.
Point 6 offers an amnesty to Hamas members who commit to peaceful coexistence and decommission their weapons. While points 7 and 8 essentially guarantee a resumption of humanitarian aid into Gaza. Point 9 says that Gaza will temporarily be governed by a technocratic committee
I'm having some internal conflict
of Palestinians and international development.
That's where my issue comes in. Number 9, the Board of Peace. Who's going to be on this board? Who's going to dictate this board? Who's going to have most of the weight? Because Palestinians should be able to set up their own military zone. Now, I understand terrorism can't be a factor here, but I have some internal issues with this.
Development experts, overseen by a so-called Board of Peace, to be chaired by Trump and include former British Prime Minister Tony Blair.
So this Board of Peace would be basically who says what happens in Gaza, which would mean America would have a permanent seat. Tony Blair, no, absolutely not. Not that guy. I'm still researching what's going on here. So certain things I'm being very careful to say so I don't have to come back and issue a lot of retractions.
This committee will govern Gaza until the Palestinian Authority, which is nominally responsible for the governance of the West Bank, has, quote, completed its reform program. It's worth noting that this is, at first glance, quite a significant concession from Netanyahu, who's previously refused to countenance the idea of a Palestinian Authority playing any role in Gaza. Although, of course, a lot depends here on what exactly is meant by completed its reform program. And the deal...
I was thinking it. I was thinking, I said, what do they mean by the completion of the reform program? Does that mean when the last building is erected? Does it mean when their government is put in place? Does it mean when they're recognized as a sovereign nation? What does that actually mean when you say their reform is complete? Because that can go in a very broad, different array of directions. I mean, there's a lot of tiers that can be built upon that when you say, well, they can basically have their say-so when their reform is complete. Why? I'm not going to say it just yet.
Also makes reference to Trump's 2020 plan, which required the Palestinian Authority to swallow some pretty bitter pills, including refraining from any attempt to join any international organization without Israel's consent.
I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like them having to ask Israel what international organizations they can join. I get it. Unfortunately, if you're on the losing end of something, you don't really get to make certain demands. If Israel was at war with, per se, Russia or China, they wouldn't say that. They wouldn't even say that to Poland. I do not like this. Refraining from any attempt to join any international organization. Now, if you have them sign an agreement that they're not allowed to join any terrorist-based organizations, I'm okay with that. I think there's so many different moving parts along the slider of this line that this is going to be something that's convoluted later.
And taking no action against Israel or the US via the ICC, ICJ, and all other tribunals. Next up is point 10.
Trump is essentially putting a protective border around Israel. Trump is putting a protective wall to make it where Gaza or the Palestinians agree to permanently never have another act of aggression against Israel. I can see this being disastrous later.
Economic development plan. Point 11 then says that Gaza will become a special economic zone with preferential tariff rates.
I knew it. I don't agree with this. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I know some of you are probably shocked that I'm saying this. I don't agree with this. What does special economic zone mean? I know what it means. It means that they want to allow a lot of the land in Gaza to no longer be owned by Palestinians. They want it to be where they can live there, but if they want to set up their own versions of resettlement, they'll have to ask for permission to do it. So what'll probably happen is over time, Gaza will become like Dubai, where a lot of the wealthy will come and play, but most of the citizens that are there, Palestinians, they will have little to no say-so of what happens in Gaza. I'm going to read more into this, but just at first glance, I'm having some internal conflict.
Point 12 addresses the question of Palestinians being forcibly expelled from Gaza, which is something that Israel has been accused of considering, insisting that, quote, no one will be forced to leave Gaza, and those who wish to leave will be free to do so and free to return. Point 13 then basically says that Hamas must agree not to have any role in Gaza's post-war.
Nope. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I misread that. Hamas. Okay, I snapped on the reaction too quickly before I digested that. Okay, Hamas, yes. Hamas agrees to have no role in Gaza governance, but if you created an international stabilization force, those are going to be people that are likely not from Gaza or not Palestinian. So they don't have the same incentive and the same interest to bring the Palestinian people as the Palestinian people would have. I can see how this is going to be problematic down the line.
Will gradually take over from the IDF, who will eventually only be responsible for security along Gaza's borders with Israel and Egypt. Interestingly, point 17 says that this will happen even if Hamas rejects the deal.
So they gonna either do it by force or acceptance. They said all that just to basically say we're gonna do it one way or the other. And then Israel has even stated that if they don't agree to this, they're going to finish the job. They're bending the Palestinians over.
In other words, this Arab-led coalition would apparently replace the IDF whatever happens. Point 8.
Oh, an Arab-like coalition. I don't know how I feel.
18, 19, and 20 then basically say that Palestinians, Israel, and the US will work together towards peaceful coexistence.
But that's a very
quote,
broad meaning.
A credible pathway to Palestinian self-determination and statehood, which we recognize as the aspiration of the Palestinian people. At first glance, this looks like a meaningful concession from Netanyahu, who has previously ruled out the idea of a Palestinian state. But it's worth noting that this includes no concrete commitments, merely a recognition from Israel and the US that it's the aspiration of the Palestinian people. So, could this deal actually bring eternal peace to the Middle East? Well, at first glance, there seems to be a cause for optimism. Israel has made at least some superficial concessions, and the deal has been well received internationally. The UK, France, and Italy all expressed support for the plan, and the foreign ministers of Saudi Arabia, Jordan, the UAE, Indonesia, Pakistan, Turkey, Qatar, and Egypt released a joint statement, quote, welcoming Trump's plan. The fact that the Arab countries that will be expected to lead the ISF, like Egypt and Jordan, and relatively Hamas-friendly countries like Turkey and Qatar, have all reacted so positively does seem like a good sign. Nonetheless, familiar stumbling blocks do remain. Most obviously, this requires Hamas to accept their demilitarization for the good of ordinary Palestinians, which feels unlikely. Furthermore, the plan is remarkably vague. It isn't clear, for instance, what...
There are some things there I like, there are some things I don't like. I'll have to research more, but this is me reacting at a first glance. I didn't get a chance to research or look into this. I just ran straight from where I was because I wanted to react once I heard that the hostages were being released. So I want to take a look and just give my thoughts on this.
The precise relationship between the Palestinian government and the Trump-led Board of Peace will be. The deal text only tells us the board will, quote, set the framework. Nor are there any concrete commitments vis-a-vis the Palestinian state, or any clarity on who could serve on the technocratic Palestinian committee. Would civil servants who served under Hamas, for instance, be excluded? Perhaps the most problematic is the lack of clear timetable for the IDF's promised withdrawal. This isn't in and of itself a bad thing. Lots of peace deals use vague language as a stepping stone to a better defined agreement. But it is a problem in this context, because there's zero trust between Israel and Hamas will expect Israel to exploit this vagueness in the future. Netanyahu's comments since...
This could definitely be a disaster later. I definitely can see how this can be exploitive towards the Palestinian people, particularly in the Gaza Strip. This pretty much leaves them naked, politically speaking.
The deal's presentation won't have helped things either. Monday evening, Netanyahu put out a video in Hebrew framing the deal as a diplomatic ploy, claiming that instead of Hamas isolating us, we isolated Hamas, and that, quote, the IDF will remain in most of the Strip. Netanyahu's comments were presumably an attempt to placate the far-right ministers whom he relies on for his parliamentary majority. But this didn't work, and on Tuesday, Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich denounced the proposal as a, quote, resounding diplomatic failure. Furthermore, contrary to what recent headlines have implied, Israel's Arab neighbors have not actually said that they support the plan. Rather, they, quote, welcome Trump's efforts towards peace, but insist upon a comprehensive deal that includes, quote, full Israeli withdrawal and a two-state solution under which Gaza is fully integrated with the West Bank.
I'm not against this. I'm not. Some of you may disagree with me. I know a lot of people that watch me are extremely pro-Israel, and I have some people that watch me that are extremely pro-Palestine, which is shocking when I found that out. This goes back to what I said earlier. The Palestinians should have some say-so in how their government is being ran. Because I guarantee you, give it some time. If the Palestinians feel they have no say-so, it's like going in your own home that you pay the mortgage for. You don't get to dictate what happens at all. You don't get any say-so. You don't get to determine what goes where. They determine where the couches will be placed in your home. They determine where the pictures will be hung in your house. Sooner or later, you will get pissed off about it.
This isn't explicitly guaranteed by the deal, and again, Netanyahu's comments won't have helped. Not only has Netanyahu claimed that the IDF will remain in most of the Strip, but he also reiterated his opposition to a Palestinian state, insisting, quote, it is not written in the agreement, and expressing skepticism that, quote, the leopard can change its spots. In other words, casting doubt on the idea of the Palestinian Authority ever taking control of Gaza. and thus the prospect of a unified Palestinian state covering both Gaza and the West Bank. Now, this isn't to say that the deal will necessarily fail, and Trump does deserve credit for squeezing out at least some concessions from Netanyahu. Nonetheless, history doesn't bode well here, and familiar obstacles are already rearing their heads. Ultimately, we live in a world where growing geopolitical and economic issues like this are hitting the headlines every day. And while it's easy to sometimes feel overwhelmed, there are ways to stay sharp.
For those of you that don't know, this is not the first time one of these plans have been attempted to be implemented between Israel and the Palestinians. There's a reason why Tony Blair's name is in the conversation. Just Google Tony Blair and peace plan between Israel and the Palestinians, and you'll see exactly what I mean. And not to mention, those policies failed horribly. Israel did this before, and it pissed the Palestinians off to the point where it reignited the previous war that they had prior. They've been fighting for the longest. What happened prior was that Israel made the Palestinians agree to certain concessions before they could even read about them. For a long period of time, Palestinians, as far as their government, was ruled by England or the United Kingdom.
We know that the easiest way to do this is with Brilliant. That's because Brilliant teaches you by doing, using active learning techniques to train you in the principles behind otherwise complex subjects, and ensuring you actually understand what's going on. With their ever-growing collection of lessons in topics ranging from maths to science to AI, there's plenty to get you started. Not only does each lesson offer a comprehensive mix of engaging problems and competitive features, but Brilliant also helps you stay consistent, keeping you motivated and excited to learn every single day. Take their newly updated science courses, for example. Here you can learn how to build simple computers out of logic gates, or open your eyes to the world around you by solving puzzles with science. Each lesson will help you to develop your scientific intuition through visual, interactive problem solving that gets you hands-on with
binary coding, okay.
Try Brilliant for free and start your learning journey today by visiting brilliant.org/TLDR, scanning the QR code on screen, or clicking the link in the description. By doing so, you'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription, and they'll know you came from us, which really helps us out.
Guys, I wanted to show integrity and allow the creator get his advertisement and promotion in. It's only the respectful thing to do as a creator myself. So I'm also very curious, and I want to read more about what the special tariffs would be inside Gaza. Would it be non-existent? Would it be zero? What would it actually be? Because if the tariffs are almost non-existent, or if they are raised separately in some sort of way from what happens in Gaza, or if they're done in sectional or regional matters, how do you actually apply those tariffs, and what would also cause them to bend the knee of those tariffs? Because tariffs is a way to make someone or another country bend the knee. That's what tariffs are about. However, what I don't want to see is that so much control on behalf of America and Israel to the point where the Palestinians feel that they're drowning in suffrage. Because basically what this 20-point plan says is, do what we say or else. Really doesn't have a lot of concessions on behalf of Israel, which is, if they're in the strong position, I get it from a strategic standpoint, why would they? I'm very curious to see how this went. I'll catch you guys in the next one. It's about to get hot.